I know where there's some, right here in the hall, clerk.
No, Molly, I have no.
Hello and welcome back. Philco 60B chassis. This episode we're going to be applying some power and seeing what happens when we do. What I've done at this point is I've replaced the filter caps. I have replaced the safety cap, so-called safety cap, and I've replaced the coupling cap that goes to the output tube. I've taken out an extraneous electrolytic that somebody has added. I have bypassed the on-off switch here because I haven't taken it apart and fixed it yet. So it just has a jumper across it. The speaker has been reconnected, just jumpered together. And I've tacked on a power cord that's going up to the Tipton device. And I'm going to switch you over there and talk about what I'm doing while we watch what happens over there. Okay, the Tipton device is actually my dim bulb tester with a readout. I've got an isolation transformer here. I've got the variac here. Got the radio right here where you can't see it, down there. And I've got a schematic. And what we're going to do here is apply some power right across the primary of the radio's power transformer. This has been replaced, these guys have been replaced, and these guys don't exist. So what I want to do is, I've got no tubes in it yet, so I want to measure the voltage across the two plates of the rectifier socket. This is where the rectifier tube would go, but this will tell me whether I'm getting high voltage on this secondary, the high voltage secondary right here. So that's the goal, is to see what's happening. This is turned the variac is turned all the way down. Turn on the power. This readout comes on at about 50 volts. My DVM is complaining because I left it on too long. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start turning the variac up. We're going to watch the dim bulb, and about 50 volts this will come on, which is a good indicator. And then we'll see where the high voltage winding is. So the dim bulb is staying off. It's a good sign. The Tipton device flashed. It's thinking about coming alive. Here it is. It says we've got 67 volts going into the radio. It's pulling 37 milliamps, which is no surprise. That would be a capacitor and the transformer itself, 1.6 watts. All right, so no dim bulb, that's okay. Let's see what our high voltage winding is doing on the transformer. It's doing 419 volts AC. So that means it's working for the moment. This is without a load. This has no load on it whatsoever. It will go down considerably when a load gets on it, but we'll start by running it on up to 100 volts and making sure the dim bulb still doesn't come on. And there's 112, 115 volts. We got about 716 across the secondary, the high voltage secondary of the power transformer. So that's a good sign. I don't see any smoke. I don't smell anything. Current is not surprising. 111 milliamps, 4.49 watts. That looks fine to me so far. So what I'll do now is turn this off. I'll put a rectifier tube in the radio, and then we'll see what happens next. Just stuff. Now I have the rectifier tube in. I'm going to put the meter, I have put the meter right across here, from here to here, measuring the voltage across this electrolytic. This is where we should be seeing some DC voltage right here if the transformer is working okay. So we're going to watch the dim bulb. We're going to watch the DC voltage as it develops across here with the rectifier in place. No other tubes are in. So we're just measuring from here to here. So we'll turn it on. Again, the radio is jumpered on. Got the voltmeter ready to show you. We'll watch the dim bulb now. So we bring up some voltage. Okay, we're getting close to 50 volts. And there we are around, 65. Dim bulb is dim. The voltmeter, now looking at DC volts, is looking at 204 volts DC. And I have to move the camera for this, but I always appreciate when a light comes on. And there is our little dial indicator light running. That's great. Okay, I think we have an operating power transformer. That's good news. And what I'll do is regather myself and then start to take some other measurements of the other windings in the transformer. But at this point, it looks good. Okay, I moved the camera around. Let's go ahead and see what we end up with. It's been on for some time. I'm going to run the voltage on up to about 100, well, in stages, but up to about 115 volts, which is what this radio would expect. And we'll watch the high voltage winding on the power transformer, see what it does. And again, this is no load beyond the rectifier. This is a reminder, this is the DC voltage across one of the power caps. So we'll run this on up to there we are at 80 volts. We've got 127 milliamps, 304 volts DC. Let's see how much ripple we have. Some. Again, that's no surprise because there's no load on the caps either beyond this meter. So on up to 100 volts. 168 milliamps, 401 DC volts, 402, and then on up to 115. No dim bulb is still off, and no glowing. Almost 200 milliamps, 116 volts, 462 volts on the high voltage winding. So that's all good news as far as I'm concerned. Let's back out and take a look at the schematic here. So I believe we're looking right here across this filter cap. And let's take a look at the 6.3 volt winding, which we can pick up on any of the tubes. And I'll move this. Holy smokes, I heard noise. I took my voltmeter clip off that one socket and heard noise in the output circuit. So that's also good news. That means all of this is working as well. All right. The 6.3 volts going into the tubes for heaters is AC, so we'll switch back to AC. And we should be able to pick this up on pins 1 and 6 of the 42 tube socket. Again, the tube isn't in its socket. So here's pin 1 and 6 right here. And we're getting 6.62 volts AC. So that's perfect. So this winding is working. The high voltage winding appears to be working. Let's look across the rectifier itself. Where do we want to look? Yeah, right across from pin 4 to pin 1 of the rectifier tube. Go back there and see what that looks like. And here's across the 5 volt winding for the rectifier tube, the directly heated cathode. So this all looks great. I'm so pleased. Apparently the power transformer is okay, even though it had oddball DC resistances. What I will do at some point in the future during this series is I'll revisit that. But for now, I want to move forward with the radio. And I think what I want to do, at this point, is go ahead and test the tube. I haven't tested any of the tubes except the rectifier tube. I'll test all the tubes in a tube tester, and then I'll install them in the chassis, and we'll start to see whether we get things like noise from the output tube and whether we're getting any RF through here. Again, we have questionable transformers. We have this first IF that the primary seems to be open. We have an antenna coil or transformer problem here, probably. But if I can get signal, if I can inject a signal here and get it out that way and get something out the speaker, then I would be just ecstatic. And then I can start the work. It's just work of testing all the resistors, replacing the caps in Bakelite cans. None of them will survive this effort, I'm here to say. So all the Bakelites will have to be restuffed, and we'll see where that goes. But that's my intent.